Life isn't black and white, it's grey. Guns are surrounded in grey.
I first met Michael Phillips in 2014, about 4 years ago, at the FAST anniversary, the 20th anniversary of the Tampa General FAST office. Now, I was new to the AT space, I was brand new to it, and I kind of sat in the back of the room and watched him give a keynote using just the muscles in his forehead and scanning and speaking eloquently about what his life was like. Now, everybody there was impressed with how he spoke and what he said. And I went home and I looked at his blog later that night, which is sometimes not safe for kids. Some language alerts on it, but generally speaking, thoughtful and sometimes angry about a situation that he's not happy about. He has spinal muscular atrophy, type 1. He is 37 years old, which is remarkable. He was not given a year to live when he was born, and the fact that he has not just survived but thrived and made himself known is remarkable. One of the things I noticed on that blog was that he had a list of things to do. He doesn't call it a bucket list. In fact, he hates the term bucket list, so I'll try not to use it here. But he has a list of things to do, things that he wants to do, whether they're just fun or meaningful or whatever it is. And one of the things on the list was something that I thought I might be able to help him with. It said quite simply, fire a gun with a switch. And so after many years, we have finally gotten around to having Mike fire a gun with a switch. Let's take a look at how this went down this past Saturday.
There
you go.
Nice. I shook. That was loud.
Clear.
I think we all heard that.
This is really my aim of self-confidence of clearances.
We're right here.
I got his shoulder.
It's just a flesh wound.
I gotta get him in the head.
You got him right here, pretty close. You want to shoot some more? Yes? You got that one? All right, so let's put another one in.
Is that the bullet that was sent to us? We'll keep that.
I'll put it right here for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
I have a lot of strange souvenirs from Mike, but I'll have to admit that's one of the oddest. I have some from the Bonaventure.
I've tried to cut out all of the delays in this video, but I thought it would be worthwhile to leave one in to show you just how long it takes for Mike to find a sentence, type in a sentence that he'd like, and to make a pretty simple request known. So he is using his forehead to scan a grid of letters, and they're being typed into the screen on his Mac. It'll take him a couple minutes here, about a minute here, to get his sentence in and what he wants me to do next. Can we try for the head? Yeah, we'll try for the head. Sure, why not? There you go. Right now we're talking, right in the eye.
It's like the Godfather. Oh, green, you got it right.
Look at that, right there.
Got it right to the eye, Mike. That'll slow down.
Do we go for here? Yes? Alright. If I was... I was the one holding the gun. I can know where this is going.
It's not super, right?
Hey, listen. I'll take a lot of grief from you, but I'm not sure I'm going to take this.
Man up,
That looks pretty good.
Mike, you're closer. Oh, yeah.
Look at that, right?
That's pretty close. We want one here, right?
That took it down.
We want one up here. We'll do a couple more.
One more?
Gotta gotta get the red light.
Good. Karen, I'll do as many as he wants.
Mike's like, yeah.
There you go. That's awesome.
Okay, I challenge any of you to get that where he just did.
That's the one I didn't show.
I think we probably can't get it better than that. You can't do a lot better than that.
Can't get any better than that, Mike.
All right, what do you think?
Oh.
Dead zombie?
Oh, yeah, dead zombie. Definitely a dead zombie.
That's awesome. Well, we did good, man. We only missed him once.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
So, would you like to shoot any more? Do you want to shoot something other than a zombie? I don't know what this look is. Is it yes or no?
You want to shoot something else?
No.
You want to still shoot the zombie?
Yes?
He wants to still shoot the
Shoot the
zombie.
zombie off. You want to go for this one? This one down here?
Go for that one?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, my God, you say it.
Mike never ceases to amaze me.
Alright. So just a little bit farther. You want to take him out down here? No. We're going to hit him in the neck. Yes. Alright, we're going to hit him in the neck. So let me explain to you what I'm doing wrong. So what I'm doing wrong is I'm not letting the trigger come out. So every time you fire this gun, you have to release the trigger or it won't fire again. And I just keep forgetting. Let's see.
Got him right square in the neck.
I think we got him right in the neck.
Yeah, I think that about took his head off.
Yeah, you got him right where you were aiming.
Zombie
Sever
down.
the head. I know where he's going with this. Sever the head. When Mike is done, we even got Karen to shoot.
That's why I left the room.
Do you want to shoot a gun?
You want to shoot?
Immediately when you get water.
Okay.
This one is yours.
That's true.
I think you're a very good shot.
Mine. Okay.
Well, this one over here is mine, but those are closer. See, you did outstanding. That was your first shot.
Same target?
I'll give him another target. And making this happen required a lot more than some basic robotics. It required a number of things we had to learn and a number of things we had to just make happen. We had to reach out to the ATF. We had to make sure that what we were going to do was legal. They had to give us guidance on where the limits of what we could do were. We had to get our plan approved and cleared by them, and we did that. I would definitely recommend, if you're even thinking of anything remotely like firing a gun with a switch, make sure you reach out to your local ATF. Ours here in Tampa was very easy to work with and very helpful, actually, in giving us some direction. The biggest technical challenge here was actually to hold the gun safely, and we reached out to a company named Ransom International in Prescott, Arizona, and they were fabulous. You'll hear more about that later with Karen, but they couldn't have been any more helpful, and we need to thank them very much for that. We also needed to find a range that was willing to do this. This is not an easy, Michael is not an easy shooter. In fact, Reload here in Tarpon Springs was fabulous. They cleared 10 lanes for us on a busy Saturday afternoon and gave us fantastic support. So we had to find a place, we had to get it approved, and then we had a technical challenge that actually taught us a lot. We actually had to figure out how to get Michael, who really only has a sensor on his forehead that can tell when he's activating a switch. We had to be able to integrate that into a robotics project that would pull the trigger. And the important lesson that we learned, and it's kind of a big one, is that people can generally, regardless of how far they go down a degenerative path like ALS or SMA, they generally try to keep access to the web. It's a lifeline nowadays to your community, to your support. And so what we did was, rather than try to come up with a new interesting way to hook up his switch to the robot, we simply put a web interface on top of the robot that pulled the switch. And we used a Raspberry Pi for that, a little servo, and some code written in Python, and it worked fabulously. We also had to do this project without one of our greatest resources. We couldn't use the robotics teams. We couldn't use the high school teens that we normally use. It was pretty clear early on that that would have been a bad idea. And so just officially, no teens were involved in this, not even young adults in college. This was myself and some other adults who volunteered and made this happen. Now, finally, we've gotten questions that range from why would you do this to how could you do this? And so I talked to Karen, Mike's mom, and Mike himself, and asked them to share their thoughts, and I'll add mine at the very end as well. All right, so I'm with Karen Clay, Mike's mom.
I am.
And how are you?
I'm fine.
Good. So we're going to talk a little bit about the project we just finished, and and you're good with it? You're happy?
I'm very happy.
And I'm very happy. It was a lot of fun. I got to watch Karen shoot a gun.
Yeah, I did.
Which is great. She's got to be not just a first, but a shock, right?
Cut my finger.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, bleeding.
Oh, he
still.
bit you? I wish you'd told me.
It was just
All right. All right, so Mike, more importantly, got to shoot a gun, and
Yes,
that's really
I
what
did.
this was about.
Yes.
So let's start with the obvious question. Now, you are far left of me politically.
I'm as far left as one can get.
Yeah, you're way out there.
I know.
I'm much closer to the center, I think.
Probably.
But you did this anyways. So tell us
Yes.
a little bit about. Mike wanted this. You didn't want this, right?
It's Mike's list. You know, when you have a bucket list, you don't ask if you can. You just try to figure out a way to make it happen.
To do them all.
And that's
Right.
what moms do.
Right. And actually, I got to tell you, I really love the fact that it wasn't your call. I mean, it wasn't. You had all the strings you could have pulled, and you didn't.
No.
Right. You could have told me no. You could have just not driven him here.
No.
But right, it's Mike's life.
Yes.
And that's exactly why we did it. We. So ATMakers is not in the gun business, not even close, okay? We teach high school kids to make AT, and obviously I couldn't use any high school kids for this.
No.
That was not going to happen. But I did see years ago, before I founded AT, I saw that on his list,
Yeah.
and I thought, I can help him do that. Everything else on that list, I can't help him with. But that one, I mean, I got friends. We can make this happen, right?
Yeah.
And everybody was delightful today. Right?
Absolutely everyone, and all the way from the ransom company.
Yeah.
They were just unbelievably kind. Did an entire video showing their the process of how they make things, and told us a little about Mr. Ransom, who invented the device, why he invented the device, and it's primarily used from. You know, what I found most appealing was for forensics, because you can't, you know, if there's a crime scene, you're not going to stand there and try to figure out how to shoot and hold the gun. It has to be put on a stable platform.
And repeatable.
And fired so that it is accurate.
Right.
And so that made perfect sense to me. This is not a gun that is you're going to put in the woods to shoot Bambi. This is a gun that is going to be, well, it is. It's going to be used to, you know, to either help solve a crime or to test a gun itself.
Correct. It's going to make it accurate. Right. So it's always about, so for those of you who don't know what we're talking about the ransom rest, which actually is what held the gun.
Yes.
Which was my biggest challenge with this, was how are we going to safely hold the gun?
Right.
Make sure that Nobody's in any danger, and Ransom completely solved that. And they sent us the original ransom rest, which was very cool.
Yes, they did. No one else has used that device other than Charles Ransom. And they said in the video that they sent to us that it was the first time it had ever been out of the case.
Wow.
Since they had the original. And so what they're going to do when it is returned is to put a plaque there with Michael Phillips' name on it.
Right.
So that's an incredible honor. I think with Mike, it's just he's always done things that everyone said he couldn't do.
Right.
I mean,
he's
30, almost 38 years old. They told me he
Wow.
wouldn't see his first birthday. So it's his entire life has been exceeding expectations,
Right.
but never his own. His expectations for himself have always been as high as they could possibly be.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it was a remarkable day, right? This was kind of cool.
Very cool.
And we got you to shoot, and I'm really sorry about your hand. I didn't know you got hurt.
I'll live.
But I'm really glad you brought him. And I think a lot of people are going to say this is it's glorifying guns and all kinds of things like that.
This has nothing to do with that at all. It's something that, as a kid, other kids played with guns. Other kids, even when they had squirt guns, Mike couldn't. He was always the observer and not the participant. And I think anytime you can become a participant in whatever fashion,
right.
that was his goal. And the gun thing, there's a lot of power there. Mm-hmm. And you can feel it. You can feel it in your chest.
I'm really glad you shot.
The sound, and just holding that gun, that's a lot of power. And no, I'm not a fan, but it's not even that the guns themselves. It's it's the semi-automatic weapons. It's the access to them. It's the high rate of murders and deaths that we have in this country. But that's a completely separate issue. Mike is not going to be trained to shoot at anything.
When Mike becomes a risk, we've done really well, right? As a country, we've nailed it. If Mike becomes a risk, we've nailed it. We've succeeded.
You can't become obviously any more disabled than Michael is, and I think that was the challenge. And anybody that sees that he remotely shot that gun, that's incredible. It tells us what technology can do.
Well, and it also shows that it shows you that there's a mind that wants something, and it's completely possible to do just about anything as long as
except drive a car. I would really.
We can do that. We're going to do that. I think next year.
If we weren't in the car, I think that would be another story. Because he's already, I told you he has a robot in Southern California, and whenever he goes online, he has his own special, and he could make it move, and that's pretty incredible as well. I think anytime somebody who can't do something physically themselves, and through technology, it enables them to do that.
It's empowering.
It's very empowering.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why Mike's never given up. He's never quit. Yeah. There's always something else he wants to do. And as long as he has that bucket list, and as long as there's something I can help him do on that bucket list,
absolutely,
we're going to do it.
Absolutely. And we'll help. Absolutely. Next year we're going to fly a drone. It's not on the list yet,
that'd be cool.
But it's going to go on the list. I already heard it once today. Yeah, it's going to make it on the list.
Definitely wants to do that. But he wants to do that Grand Canyon thing on that glass. He wants to ride his wheelchair on the glass.
No, man, I did the one in Chicago. I about passed out. No.
I told him I'd do it. I'd be on my hands and knees, but I'd do it.
No.
I know.
He's crazy. So
he loves New York, too. He went to the top of the Empire State Building, and that was the only trip he'd ever been without a family member.
Wow.
Went on a train to New York, and I was freaking out.
I bet you were.
Completely. And my Brian sat me down. We had an intervention. He said, "Mom, it's like a long trip to Starbucks."
Wow, that's a long trip. That's a long trip to Starbucks,
and
New York.
And I let him go, and he obviously came back unharmed. And it's whatever he wants to do. Again, that's what moms are for.
No, very cool. So I'm going to talk to Mike and find out what he has to say, and that will take longer. Okay. We also need to make sure he's got every option of going as fast as he can. But
he would like that.
Yeah,
we need to take that out of whose hands.
Yeah. We will do everything we can. Positive. Mm-hmm. We will do everything we can to make sure that Mike has everything he can off that list and the ability to communicate. So, all right. Oh.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you for bringing him.
Oh, that's the easy part.
All right, so Mike, a lot of people have asked why you want to do this, why this was on your bucket list. What do you tell them?
I'm an ultra-liberal, anti-National Rifle Association, anti-all things Trumpian. I think it's disgusting that being able to buy a gun, any gun, as quickly and easily as possible is apparently more important than protecting the lives of children. America is way past due for an overhaul of our gun legislation. I could go on and on. So, why would someone with my beliefs want to use assistive technology to fire a gun? I've grown up watching Star Wars, Alien, Tarantino films, and on and on. Guns, as part of fiction, guns as objects have always fascinated me. I mean, when a fellow cocks his shotgun before he relieves a zombie of its head, that click-click sound is cool. I think you can admire a gun as an object, as something used for fun, and still be strongly against the ways in which people use guns to perpetuate absolutely vile acts of cruelty. Life isn't black and white, it's grey. Guns are surrounded in grey. Taking a Glock 17 to a range and blowing holes in paper targets using my assistive technology was spectacularly fun, and I don't regret it, yet if I had to point said gun at a living being, I'd be ill. It's all about the way in which a gun is used.
Finally, I've had the blessing and curse of having an extra couple days to think about my final thoughts on this. I've also gotten to see some of the responses to the early news that we put out about this project online. I guess the best thing I can say is I'm really happy with how this turned out. It started out as a very simple request and a very simple goal. We wanted somebody who was an AT user, a man who required technology to do the basics of life, wanting to expand his horizons, wanting to experience life more fully and more richly. And that's something we will always try to support, at least if it's in our power, we will. I've been surprised and kind of encouraged by what happened in the real world. We had people on very different ends of the spectrum, from gun equipment manufacturers to range owners to very far left activists. I mean, I think Karen, would not be upset with me calling her an activist at all. And all of us could put that aside, and we knew our differences, put them aside and say, this is important. It's important to let this person experience this act that is completely legal. And safe. We did it safely. We did it within all the bounds we needed to in order to make it happen. And all of us at the end of the day came together and had quite a great day. And I think it is something that is harder to do online nowadays. And I am very encouraged that it can still be done in real life. Thanks. And as always, good luck and have fun.